Incoterms 2020, Key Changes and Tips. Incoterms, International Commercial Terms, is a series of predefined rules published by the International Chamber of Commercial, ICC, for use in international trade. Incoterms 2020 is the ninth set of international contract terms published by the International Chamber of Commerce, with the first set published in 1936. Incoterms 2020 consists of 11 rules, the same number as defined by Incoterms 2010. Incoterms 2020 came into effect as of January 1, 2020. And it will be effective for a decade or until the end of the year 2029. Despite being such an essential part of our everyday lives, most of us do not know much about Incoterms, much less the jargon associated with them. But if you are shipping goods, you must know your Incoterms and understand who is responsible for what in the supply chain. That is the purpose of this series of videos designed to guide and share with you comprehensive information about Incoterms, explaining it so that anyone can understand. So let's begin by speaking a common language of Incoterms. The rules or terms are recognized by businesses, the government, and the legal authorities worldwide. Why the need for a common language? As more and more goods are traded globally, we realize that there are different ways of doing business, local languages, customs, legal systems, trade barriers, etc. All these could spell trouble or challenges. It depends on you. So Incoterms give us the advantage of predictability, and as they are recognized worldwide, they became a common language for international traders. Therefore, all the parties to the business transaction must understand how the sale ought to go. This is why the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, a firm dedicated to the facilitation of international trade, came up with a standard set of rules and guidelines. This language breaks the barriers that can block sales and exchanges in the global scene. This arrangement of rules, which has become a common language in international trade, is called Incoterms. Just what are Incoterms? They are international rules defining the respective responsibility of the seller and buyer concerning the supply of goods. They describe the division of risks and costs between seller and buyer, and the great thing is, they have the same meaning worldwide. It's likewise critical to understand that not all guidelines apply in all cases. Some include any mode or method of transport. Transport by all methods of transport, road, rail, air, and sea, covers EXW, FCA, CPT, CIP, DAP, DPU, replaces DAT, and DDP. C/inland waterway transport, C, covers FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF, which we will discuss further in the next video. What are the responsibilities and obligations? The purchase and sale contract must clearly state the buyer and seller's responsibilities and obligations before any delivery activity can occur. The primary responsibilities and obligations covered by the Incoterms are: Number 1, delivery point. The delivery point is where the physical goods underlying the contract will be delivered and the risk transferred from the seller to the buyer. Will it be at the buyer's place, while on transit to the port, at the port, on board the vessel or carrier, or at a designated place? Number 2, transportation costs. The Incoterms define the party responsible for the costs of transportation of goods. Usually, there can be more than a single means of transport involved. Hence Incoterms are used to define the responsibility that party pays for which mode of transportations. Number 3, export and import procedures and formalities. Many export and import requirements must be complied with before arranging to ship, such as duties, taxes, and customs clearances that must be settled at the export and import points. There are also documents, like invoice, packing list, bill of lading, etc., that need to be executed and must be on hand, ready to be presented before customs inspection. Here, the Incoterms defines which party will arrange for the export and import requirement. Number 4, insurance cost. The Incoterms state which party pays the cost of insurance to ship the goods. Except for a couple of Incoterms, the insurance cost arrangement is negotiable between the buyer and seller. What are the changes made in Incoterms 2020? The last version of Incoterms was published in 2010, so what changes were made in the 2020 version from the Incoterms of the 2010 version? Number 1, change in the 3-letter initials for DAT to DPU. Incoterms DAT, delivered at terminal, was changed to DPU, delivered at place unloaded. The changes accurately reflect the place of destination could be any place and not only a terminal. It also underscores the only difference from delivered at place unloaded, DPU, under DAP, the seller does not unload the goods, whereas, under DPU, the seller does unload the goods. DPU is the only Incoterms rule that requires the seller to unload goods at the place of destination. Number 2, bills of lading with an onboard notation and the FCA Incoterms rule. This option is expressly given in the Incoterms 2020 for maritime/sea transport. Now, the buyer can instruct the shipping company to issue the BL to the seller, but with an onboard annotation. This indicates that the goods were loaded on board the vessel. The BL is often used as a supporting document in letters of credit transactions proving the delivery of the goods and facilitating payment to the seller. Number 3, different levels of insurance cover in CIF and CIP. The Incoterms 2020 rules accommodate various degrees of insurance coverage in the CIF, cost insurance and freight, rule, and CIP, carriage and insurance paid to, rule. Under the CIF Incoterms rule, the Institute Cargo Clauses C remain the default level of coverage, giving parties the option to agree to a higher level of insurance cover. Feedback from global users: the CIP Incoterms rule now requires a higher level of cover, compliant with the Institute Cargo Clauses A or similar clauses. Number 4, allocation of costs and where are they listed in the Incoterms 2020 rules. The costs now appear at A9/B9 of each Incoterms rule. The purpose is to provide users with a one-stop list of costs so that the seller or buyer can now find in one place all the costs for which it would be responsible, under that particular Incoterms rule. Items of cost are also mentioned in their home article, thus, for example, the costs involved in obtaining documents in FOB still also appear at A6/B6 as well as at A9/B9. The thinking here was that users interested in discovering the specific allocation of documentary costs might be more inclined to go to the specific article dealing with delivery documents rather than the general article listing all the costs. Number 5, arranging for carriage with sellers or buyers' own means of transport in FCA, DAP, DPU, and DDP. Incoterms 2020 acknowledges that not all commercial trade transactions from the seller to the buyer are arranged through a third-party carrier. In some cases, transactions are arranged without a third-party carrier at all, that is, a seller uses its own means of transportation or a buyer using its own vehicle to collect goods. Number 6, inclusion of security-related requirements within carriage obligations and cost. During the past decade, the transport and logistics industry has gone through numerous instrumental changes. These security revisions must stay alert with the international trade terms at both the seller's and buyer's ends. Expanding on the broad security-related necessities established by Incoterms 2010, the most recent release of the Incoterms rules incorporates more accurately and itemized security-related commitments in Articles A4 on carriage and A7 on import/export clearance of each Incoterms rule. Costs identifying with these prerequisites also appear in the Consolidated Costs article, A9/B9. Number 7, explanatory notes for users. The guidance notes printed at the beginning of each Incoterms rule in the 2010 version are now showing as explanatory notes for users. These notes explain the basics of each Incoterms 2020 rule. It shows the user delivery and risk, the mode of transport, place or precise point of delivery, the point at which the risk was transferred, and how the costs are allocated for the seller and buyer. The explanatory notes are, a. to help the user precisely and effectively steer towards the appropriate Incoterms rule for a specific transaction, and b. to provide those involved in deciding or advising on disputes or contracts agreement governed by Incoterms 2020. Here are the 3 tips on how to use Incoterms correctly. Number 1, select the right Incoterms for your trade. Number 2, always mention the place of delivery or the port of loading/discharge. Number 3, incorporate the Incoterms in the correct format into the contract as well as the LC, letter of credit, commercial invoice, and all relevant shipping documents such as BL. To build an effective and successful supply chain, we must master the Incoterms and their relations to sales contracts, insurance, and shipping-related documents and customs. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video gives you a better understanding of the changes in Incoterms 2020. As promised at the beginning of the video, I will be sharing comprehensive information about the 11 Incoterms rules, so watch out for it. To be the first to watch the next video, please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell. Goodbye from your trusted shipping guide. Revisit.